Alright, in this video we'll concentrate on getting the information in for the navigation. I have made a second copy of my folder, and I'm going to do that every time I do something significant. So now if I start working on this and something is really bad, I just go back to the folder named 001. If not, I have a 001 and a 002 at this point, and hopefully I can just keep going and never have to go back, but just in case, it's nice to have that option. The only thing that I notice here that I haven't done back to the design in Photoshop is change the font family for the header. So I'll go ahead and tackle that right now. We'll get into the CSS Designer panel. We'll go to that H1 tag, and then we'll go to text, and then we will add a font family. And since everything else is in a sans serif font, I will add a serif font for this one, just like my design. Let's see, I'll start with this one, and then when I look at the actual CSS, I can go ahead and rewrite my font choice in here. And the main thing I'm going to do, just so it stays similar to what I have in Photoshop, is put Georgia up at the front here. So I'm just cutting and pasting, and that should take care of that. And doing a quick preview, one more thing I want to do is either make, in the case of people using a header, we'll change the header color, and for people using an aside, we'll change the aside color. And even if yours isn't a different color than the rest of the website, you may just want to make it a funky color just so you can really get an idea what's happening. You can always change this stuff back. So we need to look back at our source code, grab the header here, add a selector over in the CSS panel, and we just want that to be for either header or aside. Click return, and then we'll start writing properties for that. So we're just going to simply go to background, punch in the color. Mine was just black. Precede that by the £, hit return, and then we'll preview that. Remember to do a save all before you preview. Now you should start to notice some weird things happening. There's a space here, up above here, everything's real tight in here, but that has to do back with that box model, and it looks like it's automatically putting some padding in there. We'll talk about ways to get away from that. Okay, so if you have the header style site, this is about what your CSS will look like right now. And if you have the aside, the only difference is instead of this saying header, it'll say aside. It'll even look exactly the same. In other words, just because this says aside, it doesn't magically put it over to the side. We have to write the code for that. So I apologize if I'm saying this too many times, but I just don't want anyone to get confused, right? So for some of you, this is going to say aside, and for the rest of you, it's going to say header. But what we're doing beyond that really doesn't matter. It applies to everyone. So let's start working on the nav itself, and I'm just going to go in here and put all of these on a different line here just to clean it up. Okay, and then we're going to wrap these with a hyperlink. So again, I'm in the insert panel over here, HTML, hyperlink, and the text, it already puts it in there for me. The link is where is it going to go. If we already had pages made, they'd probably show up in here. For the home page, I'm just going to put in the £, which is what some people call a dummy link. Doesn't have to go anywhere because it's already on the home page. And then we're going to keep doing that for the rest of these. And what we can do for these is just type out the name of the page, even though it doesn't exist yet, but there will be a portfolio.html page, and then the same thing for the contact page. We're going to select each tag and surround it by a list item. Repeat that for the next 3. I should have said repeat for the next 2. Then we're going to grab all 3 and we are going to put an unordered list around them and clean up the indenting a little bit here. Okay, and then there you go. And if we do a save all, preview it in the browser, you can see it's not looking so great yet, but that's what CSS is for. Now, even though my nav doesn't call for a different color than the header or the aside, I'm going to give it a color just so we can see what is the nav as far as the block model goes. So in the CSS, or I should say back in Dreamweaver on the HTML page, I have the nav selected. I'm going to go back into Css Designer and we are going to create a new selector, and all we want in here is just nav. And we are going to hit enter so the properties come up, and we are going to go to background, and we're going to get just a little wacky here with a red. Hit enter. Now we want to start controlling the look of what's going on deeper inside the nav. In other words, the way these links look. Now we would need to write the code for this unordered list. But if we make CSS just for unordered lists, then if later on we decide we need an unordered list, it's going to have this navigation type styling. So what we can do is create a selector that is a class, meaning we could use it multiple times in different areas just like we did on the CSS site. So what we'll do is come over here, click plus, and we'll just call this nav list. And to make it a class, we need to start it with a period. Okay, so let's write a couple properties that make this look more like navigation. So scrolling through all these different items, one would be the text decoration. We will click none, and then for list style type, we want to change that to none as well. Okay, let's see where we're at here with the file. Save all. And nothing happened. Why is that? Because we haven't applied it yet. You can see there's our UL, but we need to put that class in there. So we'll go down here right after the L of UL, put in a space, and then you can see that it knows we're trying to add a class. We click class, and it shows us the one we have, which I misnamed. I'll fix that. But let's just see if this works. So yeah, close. So if I fix my typo here, I have to make sure I fix it in my CSS as well. And here is the class that we wrote down here, and we'll just change that to match the same spelling. Oh, and for some reason the style did not change of the text, just the list style did. Okay, so I made sure that was selected over here. And then under text decoration, I clicked on none again, and this time it went in there. And as you can see, that did not work. And I believe the reason is, but we'll find out for sure in a second here, I think it needs to apply deeper. Right now it's trying to apply to the UL, and I think it actually needs to apply to the list item to get rid of that underline on there. So we'll create a class that we can apply to the list items. And we'll call this nav list item. Keep it simple. And let's just, as an experiment, go over to the CSS and cut the line from here that was the text decoration and paste it into here. And then remember, we need to apply this. So we go back to the source code, go to list item, put a space in there, tell it we want a class. Now we have our two classes listed. We select the one we just made, And let's see how that's going to work here. File, save all. Almost there, but the CSS is looking that we need to target the actual anchor tag. So we need to go into our main CSS and we need to add a space here in A. So what that's saying is that any anchor tag that is preceded by a nav list item, do this to it. Make the text decoration none. So we'll save all and take a look, and you can see it did indeed get rid of it there. So now we just have to copy this class and apply it to these two other list items. So we'll just do a simple copy in here, Command C, and paste it in those other two. Okay, we're making progress. Now let's go ahead and change this to the color that's the rest of the fonts. Remember, it's being overwritten with this blue just because of the fact that it is a navigation item or a link. So, and we could do this over here, but at this point, since we've got stuff in here, sometimes it's just as easy to copy it. So if we go to the body and we've got our color, which applies to text because background color is for the background, copy that. Go down to our new item here, paste that in. You can see we're one step closer. Let's do another little experiment here that'll get us one step closer to the nav. We're going to take and put in a background color. And let's just go green, finish it with the semicolon, and take a look at that. Okay, I know this looks bad right now, but it's going to help us understand what's about to happen next. Now, as I've been talking about, I'm going to show you how to do a navigation going across the top and one this way. But even amongst those two choices, there might be a lot of different varieties that you want. One way to figure out the look that you're after is to go to the W3 schools and look at all the different options that they have. So if you're just under the CSS tab and you go down to navigation bar, takes you through a whole bunch of examples, gives you examples on how to write the code. But one thing that I want us to do right off the bat here is change our layout to block. Basically going to add this line of code here. And what that does is explained right here. Okay, so I'm pasting that little bit of code in here. There it goes. If we preview this in a browser, you can see that now it fills the whole distance. It's basically created a block out of each one of these things. And so the entire area is now clickable. So if it's probably real not obvious because the finger stays the same the whole time. But if I click anywhere along this whole area, I would go to the portfolio. Along here, home, along here, contact. The only way I can really prove that to you is to click on it, and you can see that it's trying to take us to the portfolio page, which doesn't exist yet. The other thing, as I mentioned earlier, you can see the effects of the box model and the default padding that's added by, in this case, my browser Chrome. You can still see it here from the red color that's back here and then the green color that's on top. So now the next thing we need to do is well, two things. We're going to continue on separate paths depending if you're doing the navigation this way or this way. But before we do that, I want to get back to just a couple basic things in the CSS and get the sizing of the text addressed first.